Motivational interviewing, what it does is help people create something that's called change talk. Whatever workouts you see and diets you see and stuff like that, like the more challenge that there is, the more support is needed. Whenever you take action on a thing, you're casting a vote for your identity. Contemplation is where people are aware of the problem and start to consider the possibility of change, but not yet committed. There's three levels. It's make money, keep money, grow money. Those are three different skill sets. When you're healthy, you have 1,000 wishes. When you're unhealthy, you only have but one wish, which is to be healthy, to be fit.
On the show today, a master fitness coach, ex dodgy young man, ex professional basketball star, a Slovenian. I was asking around, I said, who's an interesting, cool Slovenian who's really done some stuff and has things to say about psychology and motivation in the body? And this chap's name came up, even though he's living in the States. So, yeah, entrepreneur, master coach, Luka. Now, Hocevar, we could do it many different ways. Dober dan, mate, dober dan.
Dobar dan, dobro jutro. I
Dobro
hear
jutro
it's
for
dobro
you. It's
jutro.
the
It's
morning.
the
You're in the
morning.
States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Julio,
Um,
welcome, sir. Let's dive in. You've coached thousands of people. Everyone wants to get fit, lose weight. Everyone knows the basics, right? You calories in, calories out. You maybe do some strength training. You get a good night's sleep. You eat your protein. Yet it's not as simple as that. Why not?
ooh, this could be a complex one, but I think that for purposes of any communication, I think it's like feasible to, or should I say viable to talk about like some sciencey stuff and practical things. And it does get a little complex. But look, I always tell people nutrition and I've got courses and certs and all this and that. I think most people, if they went online to learn the basics in about 2 weeks, they could grasp it, right? Like you go on Google and Chat GPT and whatever, and it's like, hey, what are the things that are important? Obviously, having, some type of calorie restriction or for people that want to lose weight. Protein is extremely important. Eating more whole unprocessed foods because we know how hyperpalatable foods with fat, salt, sugar, they're easy to overeat, right? They're I would say calorically dense, but not nutritionally dense. And then things like, you know, obviously having enough hydration. So these are kind of these basic things. Eating slower because if we eat fast, our brain doesn't kind of have those receptors to know that we're full with satiety. But you'd figure that out, right? So it's like you'd know all the things you needed to know. Now, but this is not bashing anybody. Again, for somebody that's obsessed with training and nutrition and stuff like that, that nutrition coaches don't know more because they absolutely do. But if you got those basics down, you'd be good if you did them, right? If you did them. That's where it becomes challenging, right? Doing the things. And the doing the things part is where really it's behavior psychology, behavior change. A lot of that matters. And I will say another part too, which I think a lot of coaches don't want to admit because somehow I feel like it kind of negates their ability to help people change. And it is that it is a genetic factor too. And we could probably touch a little bit on, if you want to, on things like the GLP-1s and things like that, which I've shifted my thoughts around it. I've got a bunch of clients that are on them. I think that they should be and they're having success with it and so on and so forth. But so it's as you would say, it's bio, physio, social, right? Biological, psychological, social, right? Because that's an influence too. I hang out with friends. We go and drink 3 nights a week, and then we have pizza and burgers, and that's my tribe. And socially, I feel accepted there. So I don't want to be, that's how we do things. Culture is like this is how we do things around here.
You definitely want to talk culture today as someone who's made a journey from where I live to a place where a lot of listeners are. It seems to me a lot of fitness coaches bump into psychology pretty quickly, right? Because they go, this is pretty straightforward, as you say, the basics. It's complex at a certain level, but the basics people could learn relatively quickly. And then people just don't do it. And then this is the same with a meditation teacher listening to this who's saying, hey, do your meditation every day. And someone knows it's good for them, yet they don't do it. What has helped you actually get what I guess some coaches call it compliance, somewhat of a harsh word? So many of the coaches of different types listening to this are going to be going, how do I get my clients to do my homework? Or in your case, maybe it's, do the fitness program, eat the food or whatever. What do you find works?
I think where we start is probably, and somebody might roll their eyes to this, but as a coach, right? As a coach, you want to understand the people you're working with, right? And part of that understanding is like finding the anchor. Some people would call it the reason why, right? Or I always say the five whys. It's like peeling the onion. But this does matter a lot because if somebody, says, and by the way, you've probably found yourself in this scenario. I have, whether it's fitness or losing weight or making XYZ amount of money or whatever it may be. Like I just had, I'm a new father of a 21-day-old right now. So,
Congratulations. Yeah, I was
thank you
listening
very
to an
much.
interview 4 months
And
ago where you were due, so I wanted to ask that about that at some point. So I
it's,
guess does
I
it all
mean,
go out the window, the fitness and the healthy eating?
no, no, and we can touch on that too because it has a lot to do with identity. And I think identity is a very, very powerful word and something I talk to clients about. And again, it kind of goes back to the anchor. And it's like, if you have something as strong anchor, you're going to overcome or maybe continue to, do things even when you fail. Let's be real. Nobody's going to, it's not like you find out um, I would say the information that you need, and then it's like
Right.
by next week, all of a sudden you're eating less calories and more protein. That's not how it works, right? It's basically a set of skills. But we'll come back to the skills part as well. I think why is it that you're taking on this, journey, challenging journey, right? Oh, I want to lose, I'm going to lose 15, 20 pounds. That's pretty surface level. What? Interesting. Tell me a little bit more. Why would you want to lose 15, 20 pounds? Well, I want to get back to my college weight and did it. Why is that important to you? Right. So I'm going to peel the onion
Right.
and again, without being a robot of sales, it's just like I truly want to, I'm curious. I'm curious and I want to understand. And you usually get to, hopefully, right, a point where they go like, look, like I wake up in the morning, my back hurts, my energy's low, I can't play with my kids. I feel like I'm a horrible role model for my kids. Doctor told me I'm on a precipice of type 2 diabetes, and like, man, if I don't change something, you're not gonna be around, right? That's pretty damn painful. So the anchor would be like, look, I want to be a much better role model for my kids and be able to spend time with them and be there for them, right? That's a pretty damn good reason. So I think one, you want to find the anchor, right? Another part is giving the person the right amount of challenge. Okay, this is let's look at the social media internet problem, right? Like whatever workouts you see and diets you see and stuff like that. Like the more challenge that there is, the more support is needed, right? That's why usually, an ebook doesn't work. And by the way, everything in it could be great,
Yeah,
right?
the
Great
information seems
program, outline, awesome. Like I sell them, so it's like, some people will do well with them, but usually people that have been had challenges to implement things will continue to have challenges to implement things because they don't have a better environment, accountability, again, social structures that support their goals, right? Somebody guiding them along the way and understanding how to guide them along the way, right? So you got to give, if anybody's heard of this, the Goldilocks, right? Kind of the Goldilocks zone is basically a zone of where things are not too hard, because if it's too hard, people get frustrated, right? They beat themselves up. So if I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a ping pong bat, and then you're going to play ping pong with your left hand against somebody that's pretty damn good. Like very quickly, you're going to be like, I suck. This is like you're going to break the bat, right? And the other side of that is it's too easy, right? Too easy gets you bored in some ways. And for example, if you said to me like, "Hey, Luca, do this super basic thing," right? I'm like, "Oh, come on, man, it's too easy. My skills are beyond that. I'm not going to do well with that." The Goldilocks zone is right there, and the science says it's about that 5 to 7% harder than what you're used to, right? It's like a little bit more challenging than where you are. And that Goldilocks zone develops skills, keeps you engaged, doesn't make you feel like you suck. You believe you can do it. Important, right? You believe you can do it. And then for everybody, that's very different, by the way. Like, so, as a coach, it's figuring out like, hey, let's figure out this anchor. Let's figure out like what's that Goldilocks zone for you, for example, in nutrition. And maybe for somebody, it's like, hey, let's just get your breakfast down. What about
hmm
the other meals? Don't worry about the other meals. Now, somebody will go like, what? So you just, that's it? The other meals you don't give a shit about? Look, if you eat 3 meals a day, fixing one meal is 33%. If in the next 3 weeks I can get a 33% improvement on how you eat, I mean, I'm going to be very, very happy with that, right? And you got, I think a huge skill is learning how to take a skill and breaking it down into practices like that are dailies that somebody can practically go like do this thing and then be able to track it and manage it and also figuring out what that is for somebody because I'm sure you've heard this, I would say probably 7 out of 10 of our clients initially are like, I don't want to track food from a
Yes.
standpoint of apps, right? Like I don't want to put it in the app every
Oh,
day.
I
There's anything to
resisted that
track
for
it.
so long. And then it was the one thing that actually got me success when I was
Absolutely.
started doing
And
it.
and it's how you sell that to, usually the way I sell is like, hey, we're only going to do this for like a couple of weeks. It's just so that we find out what's going on. And then a lot of people will be like, hey, it's not this bad. And some people don't. We just figure out different ways for them to track it. But you do have to have, accountability in some way in understanding where you are. Because I think, there's a term that I love. It's called awareness precedes change,
Yes.
right? And assessment precedes awareness. So we have to know what's going on. You wouldn't go to a financial planner and go like, look, I really want to fix my finances. I'm broke. I'm in debt. And the financial planner goes, great. Well, we're gonna have to go over your finances. Like, I want to see your bank accounts. Well, I can't show you that. And we're like, well, I can't help you, right? Like,
It's basic right there.
it's the basic stuff, and in nutrition, it's the same thing. But there is a, much more emotional aspect a lot of times when people are like, "Wow, I can't do this." Like, hey, how about would you be open to taking pictures of your food for the next week, right? Everything that you're eating. We have a lot of clients that do that, and then we assess that, right? And even plates, like plate sizes and things of that nature, or just assessing one macronutrient. I want you to just track your protein
Right, right. How many
about the
grams of
rest of the
protein?
stuff. But
Yeah.
there's been tons of studies. But one great study I share when I do my presentations is, they had two different groups, and one group they're like, eat whatever you're eating. The other group was, hey, eat whatever you're eating, just add 40 grams of protein to the meal. Nothing else, no other guidance, no other anything, right? It was 12 or 16 weeks later, the group with that was asked to basically add the protein automatically were eating 441 calories less, right, than the other group because of, again, satiety and nutritional displacency in a sense, right? They were more full, they didn't have as much cravings, and it was just one factor, right? So it can be a big catalyst to making changes. And that can seem a lot less overwhelming to somebody. Hey, what are the proteins you like? You list the foods. Oh, I like that. I like that. I like that. Okay, great. Well, let's figure out how you're going to get this in breakfast, this for lunch, this in dinner. And it's not even the whole meal. We're just tracking one part of the meal, and we can have like these kind of rollover habit effects.
But
So now go ahead.
yeah, I want to sort of shift a little bit to the psychology of fitness, right? Like, I mean, we're already there in the sense that it's like satiety, what's habits, what's around you socially. I mean, your story is pretty interesting in terms of, as I understand it, when you were a young guy, you were involved in crime, and then like basketball, it was, I think, for you, right? Helped you become disciplined and get it together. So I love to hear how you think fitness, sports helps people in all areas of their life.
I mean, I would if I, would have a general kind of recommendation, I'd say every kid should play sports, but not to, and I wouldn't, looking back now, I wouldn't say because, you got a shot at getting a D1 scholarship or going pro because those percentages are low. But sports gave me, so many character traits, or should I say, gave me built, helped me build character traits, such as, resilience, overcoming adversity, work ethic, being a teammate and a team player. And I think that, when we look at the social part of it, for me, basketball, like I had essentially, when I was doing dumb stuff in the streets and, doing criminal activities, and I had basketball. And the thing that tilted the scales for me was that like I was so, part of my identity was like I'm a basketball player and I have my team and it was like, well, when you're doing this stuff, it's affecting this, and even my coach would, when he started knowing some of the stuff he was doing, he's like, hey, if you're late to practices, if I hear this, if I hear that, like I'm sitting you. And he did, and he sat me because he knew that would like hurt like hell, right? So I mean, it's kind of like the pain and pleasure aspect of it. I still think it works. Like, hey, if you're gonna do this dumb shit and I hear this, you're late to practice, I'm gonna do what hurts you, right? And it did change my behavior. But here's the thing though, he also cared, and I bring this up because
Mhm.
this matters dramatically. Okay, there's a great book by Kim Scott, in business. It's called Radical Candor, right? Where it's like challenge greatly, but then care deeply. And my coach cared. He'd sit down with me and say, "Hey, look, man, like I know what you're doing. Like there's only, two ways out of that." And it's like neither of them look good, right? Like he got something good here, and he talked about letting the team down, and and that mattered to me, right? So that was the social kind of aspect and environment. It's like, hey, here's your tribe. When you do this dumb shit, you know, it's affecting not only like, hey, you might not be able to play pro basketball, which is what you want, but you're letting your teammates down. And that is part of, I mean, that's why I say the basketball saved me. It truly did. And because I was in pretty deep, and it's like that aspect. And I think a big part of that is identity, right?
Yeah, identity
I
is
always
huge.
say the question, and I have it like on my phone, I have it in a lot of places still to this day, is like, who do I want to become? Right.
Right.
And not who am I, but like who do I want to become? And who I want to become is made up of a whole bunch of behaviors and actions, because identity is, and this I think James Clear did a great job of explaining this in a very simple kind of way is like, whenever you take action on a thing, you're casting a vote for your identity, right? So
Mhm.
if I open the door for an older lady and I keep doing that, right? Eventually I become the person that's like a polite person that's treating elderly people well, right? Like if I work out for 2 weeks, I'm not a fitness person. I'm not a guy. If I work out for 2 years, right, 3 4 days a week, now I've cast hundreds of votes for that identity, and now I believe that, right? I mean, it's much different than like I cast 8 votes versus I has 200 votes, right? So the more, I think there's one is this idea of what identity am I building, which does matter because like when I coach people, I'm always asking them, hey, who do you want to become? And people say, well, I want to be a fit dad. Like, man, I want to, you know what? I don't like what I'm doing. I want to pursue something I'm purposeful about. Hey, what are you purposeful about? Like, what do you enjoy? Right? We're gonna find these things and figure out like, well, let's look at your calendar, right? Like, where are you currently casting votes for this person that you want to become? And usually, it's not much. There's no intention behind it, right? And so I'm like, well, let's build intention behind these votes that you're going to cast every day, right? You tick the box, like, hey, I did my cardio. Like, man, I'm a conditioned person. Yeah, you do that 100 times, you're gonna believe that, right? But you're not gonna believe it if you like didn't do anything for 6 months or a year, and now you did one cardio session. And be like, hey, do you feel like you're a conditioned person? You won't believe it. You have to cast many more votes, right? And for me, I think that was part of it too. It was like one, I cast so many votes in the basketball bucket, right? And this idea that I'm like, hey, I'm there for my team, like I won't let them down. Social tribes are so powerful. Like we had heard to the standards of the tribe as human beings. Now, the tribe can be go out, drink every night of the week, eat whatever tribe. It can be crime, right? It can be basketball. It can be a group of fit people. It can be people that read books and want to improve themselves, personal development, right? So we have to be careful and again assess which tribes we're in because
Partners too, right? Like I've been
absolutely,
eating better since I got an Italian girlfriend because she just doesn't allow shit food in the house. She's like, I'm Italian, you eat with
absolutely,
me, we eat real food. I'm like,
absolutely.
okay, she's cooking it as well, so it's easy, it's there. And like who our partners are, who our friends are. Culturally as well, right? Like I moved to Slovenia 3 months ago, and I had it like dialed in England. Like I ate steak every day for lunch. I knew where I was getting my organic eggs from. It's like really dialed in. And when I made that transition, just practically, I was like, oh, it's real easy to eat in restaurants. No, I can't quite get the meat that I'm used to, and I don't know which aisle to go down in the
Mhm.
supermarket. Even just practical things, I put on a bunch of weight, which I'm now redressing and changing. But as you say, identity is a key one there. Like if, as a coach, I know if someone says, I'm a smoker, I'm worried because I'm going, ah, shit. They've got that as an identity level. Whereas if someone
Correct.
says,
I am versus I do. Like I smoke.
right, is the
Yeah,
behavior, like, and you could
absolutely.
challenge it, right? Like if you say, so are you someone who likes to support big corporations? And they say no. I'm like, okay, you think Marlboro's a big corporation? right? It's like all of a sudden now there's a challenge in their identity, right? Because it's like part of the identity is I don't support big corporations, and part is I'm a smoker. So where do they go with that? And you can't change that just by telling yourself stuff, right? The sort of American affirmation model of I just tell myself I'm something different than I am. As you say, it's the behavior that casts the vote.
Yeah, and so this is, have you ever heard of something called motivational interviewing?
Yeah, yeah, they do it with addictions, for example.
Correct. And it's very, very helpful. There's actually a book. So you have the motivational interviewing book, which is kind of a little bit wider spread. Then there's one called Motivational Interviewing in Nutrition and Fitness, which is excellent. And I won't dive too deep into the science, but I do want, here's why I think it's very, very important because, there's four stages in the MI teaches, right? Pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, and action. And then there's the maintenance part of it, right? But pre-contemplation, individuals in this stage are not considering change and maybe even unaware of the problem and the consequences. So you might be talking, many a times you might be talking with someone that, kind of like, I want to lose much weight, but maybe they're not ready for it. Okay. They're just in pre-contemplation. Contemplation where people are aware of the problem and start to consider the possibility of change, but not yet committed. Now,
Mhm.
there's many, many people like that. You've probably, oh, I gotta lose some weight. I gotta drop 20 pounds. Right. And then the next time you see them, every behavior they're doing is not aligned
I
with that.
should, I could, I need to, I gotta, I want to. We're sort of moving up a ladder at this point,
What
right?
want is actually in words actually matter. So for example, there's kind of like a almost a chart when I listen to people when they say like I wish,
Yeah.
that is further down the commitment
Yes.
level, right?
Yes.
I hope, I'll try. But then once you get to like I want and I commit, those words are a little bit more towards like
I
this.
will. That's what I'll say to my class. I say, oh, you need to do all sorts of shit, but what will you do? And that's the point. Everything below that I call the bullshit line. Because until I hear I will or I commit to or I'm going to do this on Tuesday at Tuesday 2 p.m., everything below that I go, but there's sort of a I can't is different, is worse than I won't, right? Because they're at
Correct.
least
Yes.
acknowledging they possibly could.
Absolutely. And there's, again, there's belief systems. And I actually do want to touch on belief systems, by the way, in a second. But the reason why I think that the things I'm bringing up matter, and by the way, the reason why coaches should really constantly improve their skills of coaching, and you can spend the rest of your life getting better at this, by the way, right? Like, because I think most people are like, oh yeah, here's the X's and O's. Here, no, 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 no. Like, change psychology is like it's a lot of it is communication. It's a lot of problem solving. There's the technical aspects of it, which we talked about, right? Like in training or in nutrition, but the problem solving communication and the psychology part is like huge. Because if you get somebody in contemplation versus preparation, where preparation is where people will actually take action, they're already like taking small steps to make a change. The way that you coach or guide somebody in each of these stages is different, right? And either way, what they talk about is something called change talk. And this is why I think building the skill of communication is so important because, when somebody tells you, you've heard of the word ambivalence, right? By the way, we all have it. Like this morning, right, where I'm like, all right, I'm going to get up and do work before I do the podcast. And last night, I got a kid, doesn't want to go to sleep nearly, so I'm worried because that stage of the father where it's like, is she breathing okay? Like you can't sleep a lot. Ambivalence is like, oh man, I really want to get up and get this work done, but I also want to snooze, right? Like it's for most people, it's like, man, I really want to get in better shape and improve my health,
Yeah.
but man, this cake looks great. Or I want to get up and go for the run that I said I was going to go to, but oh, the covers are so warm. I could go we live in ambivalence and motivational interviewing, what it does is help people create something that's called change talk, right? And it will look something like this. Would you tell me, Luka, man, it's just so hard, not eating XYZ type of foods. And I'm gonna say like, I hear you. Like, man, it is challenging to, not like dive into these foods that you love and are hyper palatable and so on and so forth, right? Like, it is challenging. And hey, maybe right now, so I'm as a coach, I might say, well, maybe, maybe that's not the right time for you to take this on. And they go like, yeah, but I do want to take this on because I hate how I feel. So what happened there is I almost was pulled back a little bit and said like, hey, maybe
Mhm.
we don't take this big of a shift, right? And they say, no, I want to. See, that's change
It's kind
talk.
of an Aikido move, right? You're not going directly against them because then you just get more resistance.
Correct. And that comes from, addiction talk, right? Because it's like with any addict, if you are going like you're addicted to this, like you're not going to get anywhere, right? They're going to stand firm. But it's very similar to, changes in nutrition and so on and so forth. So I wanted to bring that up because a lot of times when we have these conversations, like I coach a lot of coaches in the States. I have an education platform for coaches and how to be a better coach and training and, program design and nutrition and so on and so forth. And a lot of times, and it's harsh to hear that, but say, look, like, you're saying the client's uncommitted. I believe you need to elevate your skills. You just don't have certain skills to deal with this. And thus you go like, they're telling me they want to change, they don't want to change. They're not showing me that, and like they're just uncommitted. I can't deal with that. I'm like, well, but that's what we do. If you just it's like I'm only training committed people that are committed to change. I'm like, listen, if that's what the case, you'd be broke. Like people come to us
That's
because
why
they
they're
know.
getting a coach to help them with that process,
Absolutely,
right? The information's all
absolutely.
free on the internet. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But it does bring me to what you said earlier, which is the belief part, right? Like, there's so much research around this that if you believe something, your behaviors will be aligned with that belief. And sometimes it's subconscious, right? Like so, well, my family genetics, Mark, they're just, there's no way I put on weight easily, I can't lose weight. So if I believe that, now all of a sudden I'm like, well, why would I try it? So I'm just gonna eat whatever I want. And self-fulfilling prophecy, you gain more weight, you don't feel good, you go in the direction you don't want to go, right? Whereas if you can, I would say sometimes challenge or have people assess their beliefs, right? Because mindset is just the ecosystem of beliefs. That's all it
Hmm.
is. Like, what's your mindset like? Like, what is mindset? Well, it's broken down into like all these different beliefs. Like, and I came from when I was born, it was still Yugoslavia. It was socialism, right? Like, there's a certain way that people operated. I had to break through those beliefs. Reading and mentors helped me a lot with that because it was like, oh, hold on, this is what I believe, but this person I'm really aspiring to be like is saying something different.
Can I ask you a little bit about that? So, I'm in Slovenia, love the
Yeah,
country. A lot of sports people here. It's a really active
yeah.
country. You see a little bit like hiking on the weekends. There's still a little bit of that post-socialist, post-communist kind of hangover, and particularly some of the older people, a lot of trauma, sometimes a bit of like negativity with some of the older people, in terms of like
Oh yeah,
can't do
younger
the
too.
culture. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you identify as Slovenian or American now? I mean, you've been there while you're wearing a baseball cap, you're motivational. I mean, sort of where do you feel you're at culturally now?
I mean, I'm still, I would call myself a Balkan guy. I would say I'm Slovenian for sure. I love America. I mean, I'm also a Seattleite, so it's not a this or that, it's an and, right? For me. But I'm a proud Slovenian, but also I'm not the person that you'll ever hear go like bashing America or anything like that. Because I think it's, as with any countries, I could list things that could be better. I mean, that's for anywhere. But I'm very grateful because it truly is a land of. I mean, when I came here initially, I went to college and played basketball, right? Then I went back overseas and played pro. Then I moved here because I got married very young. But I mean, I started. You talk about. I was living out of my mother-in-law's house in a little room. The first 6 months, broke as could be. Former pro athlete, without much, and worked at a LA Fitness. And over this time, like, built something special that affects a lot of people. I mean, we started the gym in Slovenia 19 and a half years ago. That's still there. We were kind of the first of its kind there. And my point being is that, you know, uh, I can be both, and I talk greatly about both places. If you ask me like, hey, what would you change? Sure, we can chat about that too. But if I'm watching when Slovenia won the national European national or should I say the European Championship in basketball, I'm over here. watching the game and crying. Like I'm, patriotic as can be on that side of things.
I
So
was I was gonna break out a cocktail just for you, but I forgot it actually. It's one in the fridge now. I was gonna break one out, the Yugoslav, like I call it communist Coke, the old Coke to drink. So,
Polka. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I
Uh,
mean, relating to some of the stuff we're talking about, I was really lucky. I had some American mentors, and they were like very positive, very can-do. When I started my business, entrepreneurially, they're like, it's not just you can get fit, it's you can do what you want to do, and you can start a business, and 20 years later, it's still going, and I've done okay. I think without that American attitude, it would have been hard for me because Brits can be quite negative. They can be quite
yeah.
like complaining and like, the glass is half empty. Not all, but there's always individuals, there's always subcultures. In sports, I think it's a positive subculture in the UK. Yeah, I'm curious in terms of like some of the stuff we've talked about, motivation, identity, psychology. Where do you see the biggest differences?
Yeah, certainly I would say, and in Slovenia too, that, cynicism is pretty high. Where and you're right that certain generations are different. I think the younger generation still has that. I call it tentacles of socialism, right? We became a democracy in 91, but the tentacles of socialism are still there, and for sure. And look, without like kind of beating it down, I've always had a belief of you can complain about it or you can do something about it, right? Like, and even when like n now I get asked when I come home, I always do events. I just got asked to do a bigger event there in Slovenia end of October, and tons of people from Slovenian coaches follow me. So like I'm like, well, look, listen, I can do something about it. I can educate. I can kind of brainwash you into some type of thinking that's positive, and that's what I'll do. But there's certainly this. I would say, and by the way, most people from Slovenia that are listening, they could argue with me, but they'll probably have to nod their head a little bit. Where it's like this, I don't, I don't know, you could achieve these amazing things, it's all right. Like this is enough. And the thing is, by the way, part of this I really appreciate. So, for example, um, that people are content. Like I think in Slovenia, there's a beautiful thing about like,
Right,
people.
work enough. People have a good work ethic. They show up on time,
Yes,
but like Sunday, everything's closed, right?
correct.
Like people
And it's
don't
like,
feel the
oh,
need
it's
to work a weekend.
I work till my four. I'm jetting. And by the way, I have no. I think, but by the way, I appreciate this a lot of times and a lot of people. I think that where I will disagree with that, Ted, is when if somebody does that, but then is complaining about how they want more in life, right? And
Right. Okay. A
more
pig.
could be a better career, more money, uh, success in whatever field. Again, fitter, right? It's like, hey, I want to be fitter, but there's nothing that aligns with that within your schedule, your calendar, or your. I call it the watch and the wallet theory, right? Like it's like what you're committed to, your watch and your wallet will tell me. Your watch is your
Right.
calendar. If I look
Right.
at your calendar, like what is in your calendar? Your wallet's like where you're spending your money, right? Those two things will tell me what matters to you. Now you're going to say something, but the watch and the wallet are going to show something else. So for me, and it's like even friends in my life in Slovenia are people that I guide and mentor. I'm always oh man, but I want to do this, that, and the other. Okay, I want to start a company like F my boss, blah, 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 right? I'm like, okay, well, let me tell you, you want to start your own gym. It's like, yeah, I'm going to start my own gym and I'm going to work a 9 to 5. I said, buddy, there is no 9 to 5 the first 3 years of work. It's 7 days a week and you're going to have to do whatever you're going to have to do. Now,
Right. Right. I sat
hey,
I sat an entrepreneur down on Friday and she said, like, I want to start a business. I'm like, okay, are you prepared to work like you've never worked before? Be broke for a few years. She thought it would be a few months. So I was like, no, it might well be a few
no, no,
years.
no. Yeah, correct.
2, 3 years, and you're going to work 60 hours a week. And at the end of it, it's a coin flip if you're successful, assuming you're smart and you have a good idea. I was like, are you cool with that before I coach you? Because this is what you're signing up for. And she was like, ah, she didn't get it.
That's the thing. It's not that like I'm a belief that like this is actually a crazy stat like people that succeeded in business it's usually their sixth to seventh business if not eighth, right? Like so you're learning through your failures, and but there's something deeper behind it. Again, if your main thing is like, well, the next 2 years I want to make as much money as possible, then you shouldn't do business. Now eventually you could make a ton of money and have a better schedule and freedom and all these different things, right? But I think Dana White said it very aggressively in his viral post. He was like, oh, like you want to start your own business because you want to have freedom in your own schedule. It's like F your freedom, F your schedule, bye holidays, bye Christmas for XYZ amount of time. And here's the thing. Is that true? Many times, yes. My biggest thing is like you have to be willing to accept that, right? Because
Mhm. Mhm.
maybe you can figure out sooner. Maybe you can do it better and faster. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. Like if you ask me, how to fix a car and how the car works, I can't really tell you. I take it to a mechanic. You ask me about, how to succeed in the fitness industry and as a coach, I have as much proof as anybody can have, right? So this is the thing I'm exceptional at. I'm obsessed. I'm about it, right? So I tell, when people come to me and say, Luka, I'm going to do this. I'm like, it may not be like that. Are you willing to do like what you said, 60-hour weeks, 7 days a week, 80-hour weeks, maybe, whatever. I don't know. Are you willing to do that? Because if you are, cool, let's go. But if you're like, well, I really want to have my weekends. I'm like, listen, you
There's a
can't
reason
start
most
it.
people have jobs or don't achieve great fitness or sport results or anything else, right? It's because
Well,
it's
yeah, and it's a stats thing. Yeah, in America, 7% of people are entrepreneurs. 7%. That's it. And by the way, a lot of those seven don't make it, right? So you got I think in 5 years, 75% of small businesses fail, right? Once you get to that 10-year mark, I mean, it goes significantly down even more so. So statistically, you know, and by the way, I'm not this, it's like this is a Kobe Bryant thing, right? I'm not dissuading anybody from doing it. If I have a bunch of different arguments and you're still like, no, I want to do it, great, awesome, you should.
yeah. Just letting people know realistically, I think is
Entrepreneurship pushes the world forward. I mean, one thing I think we can agree, whether it's the States or whether it's Slovenia, anywhere else, is that government inefficiency, right? And by the way, like I was just telling my girl that's just UPS, they can't get anything right, lost two of my packages. I go there and I'm like, you can't help me out. This makes no sense. So there's no package. You can't help me out. You don't want to refund me because it's and I'm saying this somewhat jokingly, but also, if you look at the greatest inventions, it's because somebody had an idea and they suffered a long time and bust their ass for it to come to fruition, right? And we could fill in the blanks of what that is. And that's what moves the world forward. And I believe in it so much. And, I think about my journey as an entrepreneur and it is
biggest mistakes or sort of hardest learned lessons. What sucked but
uh,
was good to learn.
I mean, I think it's the greatest personal development journey there is,
Mm.
because you can't, because the thing is, the business will be stuck if you get stuck. So, for example, my own ego, meaning if I would outsource certain things much sooner, right? And let go. Because what happens is you have these, if you're a control freak and you don't have trust, right? You have trust issues, and so then you hold on to too much stuff, and then you don't do it well, and then you're trying to do everything and you drop the ball. So I think that's one thing. And today, more so than ever, we coach a lot. I've one of my businesses is called Built to Last. We help gym owners build their gyms, right? Like, and we talk about everything, not just sales, marketing, but operations, hiring, like the principles of 101 of economy, all this stuff, right? And this is one of the biggest things where people, hey, I'm still doing like 10 hours of admin work a week. I'm like, why? Like, man, get somebody to do that for you.
Right. Especially
Like,
now, people speak good English in different countries. You can outsource stuff. It's
absolutely. And that's better than it's ever been, right? Meaning
easier, much easier. I got a cool
there's much more
Hungarian who works
choices.
for me. Like
Even
it's
even
so much easier.
automation. I mean, we got a guy that does our kind of customer service sales, and we have some AI, and it's not like basically it's just a lot of AI automation and go high level stuff. And the thing is, the moment that somebody responds, they get a human talking to them and texting with them and stuff, right? But we just don't drop the ball, which we did. We used to do, right? Too much human interaction. Coach is like, oh, forgot to contact this person. I was like, whoa, that was 4 days ago. That
Yeah. No good. No good.
might not be a prospect anymore. And so that's one of those things where it's just like, hey, use, technology, hire out, especially because, if you got into the fitness industry and you're coaching and you're running a gym, the one thing that you weren't like, I can't wait to do, billing and CC rejects and scheduling, right? Like it's not one, you're not good at it, nor do you like doing it. And so there's somebody that can do probably it in a third of the time. And you're much better off. I don't know if you're making, I'm just making shit up, but it's like $100 a session, but you're paying, $22 or whatever it may be for the admin work, right? You're making 5 times more training, and that person's getting the work done faster and better than you, right? So it's like you're actually getting a 10x return on that. So we just bucket it and say, hey, $10 task, $100 task, $1,000 task, right? You want to move yourself from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000 per hour, right? Like as soon as you can. And yes, look, I did all the shit at the beginning, right? The emails, do this, but I thankfully I did, get the aha moment, and I had mentors that were like pushed me. But there's a bunch of things I would have done faster. So that's one thing for sure, right?
Hmm.
One
Hmm.
thing for sure. Number two is like why, and maybe this will be a pitch to not even for, I don't care if you coach with me, honestly, it's like just get somebody, because the amount of mistakes that you'll like, people are like, oh my God, like coaching is expensive. I'm like, no, making expensive mistakes is mis expensive. Not knowing what to do next is expensive. And and that's where I think, I've had mentors legitimately for over 19 years. I think there was one year, 1.5 years where I wasn't a mastermind, didn't have a coach, a lot of times multiple coaches in different areas of life. And it's people that I aspired to be like that did the thing that I wanted to do. They were like, XYZ amount of steps ahead. And even just like, Luca, don't do that,
I
or
I remember I
challenge.
was talking to one of my marketing coaches and he said, "What about this?" And I paused for a minute and went, "You just saved me about 50K with the
Yes.
little thing he said." And he's like, "Okay, great, because I'm only charging you five." And that was a moment where I was like, shit, this guy could double his fees. I shouldn't say that again. But I was a real moment of like, oh wow, that one little moment of clarity he helped me had like saved me such a huge amount of money.
It is. And you know what's crazy? Like I tell people that are starting like gym businesses, and by the way, other businesses too, I'm like, you should bake in coaching into your expenses, right? Because in fitness, this is a funny thing. Like we'll get like, hey man, I want to buy like one of these machines, maybe two of them, how much are these machines? It's like, oh, this one's 6 grand, this one. I'm like, okay, how much more business is this going to get you right now? And again, look, I love equipment. It's Christmas
Yeah.
to me too when you get it, but this is a person that doesn't have a good accountant, is behind on doing their accounting. Their prices are too low. They have no repeatable marketing model. No, and it's like the last thing you should think about is like, do I get a pendulum squat or a belt squat? Where that is probably, 5 to 6 months of coaching that will help you make a bunch more,
Yeah,
but not only
exactly.
that, it will operationalize your business better. So that part, I think is so important. And here's this dichotomy, by the way, for coaches, right? And this might poke somebody the wrong way if they're a coach. I hope it does, because maybe it'll help you do something. But if you are a coach, I asked everybody, do you believe in coaching? And they're like, of course I do. Yeah, because that's what you do, right? Okay, great. Because you help people do something they can't do. You help them move from point A to point B because they have a hard time doing that themselves, right? That's what literally the definition of coaching is, right? Helping somebody get from one place to another because they can't get there themselves. That's why you fly coaches. We used to, get in a coach and the horse would get you to another place. Okay, but you are having a tough time generating more leads, making more money. You're having a tough time organizing your time so that you can not work 70 hours a week and be more efficient because you're inefficient right now. And do you have a coach to help you with that? Well, I don't. Okay, but I thought you believe in coaching. So if you believe in coaching, usually you're a product of the product. You use the product. Now in fitness, that's your own product. Like I believe you should be a representation of what you speak about. But on the other side of it is like if you are not in where you want to be in business, doesn't it make sense to do the thing that you believe in, but just for another sector? Nutrition, yoga, fitness, right? Like marketing, whatever it may be. And and that's to me where I think is like you're not doing even the thing that you said that you believe in.
Right,
And
right.
the in the moment that for me, and again, this is just my own experience and lessons is the moment that I started doing a lot of that, like every time, like I would improve my business quite significantly, by the way, right?
Nice,
Because
nice.
my behavior is actually supporting that belief. Right? Yeah, of course.
Look, I want to change track a little bit before the end. This is great. I'm with you on this 100%. I think the coaches will get a lot from that. There's another group of people who listen to me, which is young guys. And the
Mhm.
cool thing about them is they're often quite entrepreneurial. That's a thing now. It wasn't when I was young, it wasn't such a big thing. They're all over YouTube, kind of looking up how to make a business. They're often into fitness. If they don't do jiu-jitsu, MMA, or the gym, but they still feel kind of a bit lost. There's this idea of sort of the meaning crisis that they're like lost in the confusion that is modern life.
Mhm.
What would you say to those young guys who are out there who are feeling lost? Is there something in fitness that can help them or in your personal philosophy?
I mean, fitness, I think, is again, this is I'm going to sound biased because I'm a fitness guy, but I would say that majority of the people we coach at the gym are, I mean, they're from all walks of life, right? From elite athletes to executives to teachers to moms to dads to you name it, right? I think it has the highest ROI, of anything that you do in life almost. Because let's go back to the quote, and I'm sure anybody can put themselves in a situation where they were feeling, horrible and unhealthy. It's like, when you're healthy, you have 1,000 wishes, right? When you're unhealthy, you only have but one wish, which is to be healthy, to be fit. And so there's that part of it. But the confidence, that getting fit. And look, you don't have to be, it's like shredded abs on the cover of a magazine, but the gym has something kind of baked into it, right? That I think transfers well to life. There's no way to build muscle, to get stronger, move better, get more condition if you don't do it consistently for a long time,
Right.
right? Uh,
Consistency, discipline,
so
self-restraint, all those things are
absolutely,
baked in, right?
they're baked into it, right? Also, another thing that's baked in is this progressive overload. Like I have to challenge myself, my body, for the body to adapt to that stress, right? So there's that baked into it. Ideally and hopefully, you also go to a place where community is baked into it to a degree. And look, I believe, are there places that, aren't great? Sure. Majority of gyms, the atmosphere is positive, right? Vast majority of them. You go in, people are positive, high five, they're excited to see you there. Like they don't, this idea that there's toxicity in gyms and that people making fun of people. Is there some of that? Absolutely. I think it's less than it's ever been. And even when I go to, big box gyms, I love what I see now. I just saw a stat that in the last 5 years, uh, women's strength training has gone up by like 700%. Just crazy amounts, right? I see more people training. I see more people training hard. I see more positivity overall, right? So in most cases, is a quality environment, right? So you get community, you get challenge progressive overload, you have to build discipline. And I would argue, that if you are able to do it in the gym, you build self-confidence up that can then transfer to other areas of life. And I wish I would do this. I mean, I know, look, this is kind of like a more anecdotal and subjective for sure, but there's many clients that I've trained for, 10 to 20 years, right? That are still at Vigor that if you looked at their incomes, I mean, they've quintuple, I don't know, like it's just like they're
Sure.
just making so much more money and a part of that, and I've had an extreme amount of people that would come to me and say like, hey man, like this has changed my life because of how I feel, how I show up, how I believe, like I go and ask for the pay increase. I take on more responsibility. I go and do the thing without asking because I want to show value, and then I get the job and get the pay raise and the higher level position. So I would to any younger person, I would say start now and make this like a pillar of like your life, right? Because, without obviously, like, look, somebody that's 22 is probably not going to give a shit about right now at 22 about how they're going to feel, when they're 40, 50, 60. But I'll tell you what, it's kind of like money, right? Everybody gets compound interest because it gets talked about so much. Hey, if you start putting $1,000 away when you're, 10 years old, it's going to be a million something when the kid it turns, 55 or 60 or whatever it may be, right? But with health, I turned 44 weeks ago, and you know, I can do things that most people are like, what the, I do stuff with my NFL guys and like, what's going on? Like, how are you doing this? And all like for me, it's just compounding, right? Even when you get hurt, when you get sick, you bounce back faster, you recover faster. Like the quality of life, the adage of it's not about the years in your life, but the life in your years is I can do whatever, man. At 44, I go for a hike, go play basketball, I could do whatever. It doesn't matter, right? Like, and so that compounds. It's much harder. I'm not saying that you can't do it if you're not training and you're 45, start now, right? And Peter Attia talks about this. Well, I forgot what the name for it is, but what's the last, decade of your life? What do you want it to be like? Well, you need to start training for it now. So if you want to be 80 years old and be able to do a marathon, hike 10 miles, no problem, pick up your kids, you should start your grandkids, you should start training for that now, in your whatever 40s or 45s. So to me, it's like, hey, do you want to have compound interest in health, fitness, and performance? Get on that. And by the way, it will transfer into every area of life. I don't give a shit like who you are. So that's number one. And then, I would say, buddy of mine, Sahil Bloom has a book that he said the five types of wealth. It in for let's say one type of wealth is finances. So if you are, a younger person, how would you do that? Because I was there as well. And it was like I was broke. I came when I came to the States and was started here, I was like 25. And my boss at this gym called Vision Quest, taught me like the book The Richest Man in Babylon. It's like, 10 to 20% of every dollar, put it on the side. And he was really influential on me because he was like, hey, look, right now you're not making a lot of money. Don't make the mistake of telling yourself that when you make more money, you'll put money on the side. It's what everybody does, right? Because if you don't build the habit, when you make more money, you'll spend more money. It doesn't matter.
Right. True. True.
And thankfully, that is a thing that I took to heart. And, I wasn't making much at all, but I was putting 25 cents to the dollar on the side, right? And it was honestly very hard at the beginning because it's like, this is nothing, right? But I built the habit of it. And over the years, because I here in the States, I bought the building that we're in. I bought the whole building like 8 years ago. And, people are like, how the hell did you do that? And it's like, well, I built habits like a long time ago. And just over time, they compounded as I was making more. What I was putting on the side was quite a bit more. Right. And when you're young, like that, in the States, and I think very, very few places where they teach financial literacy, financial management. Right. It's like you get taught how to make money to a degree, but I think there's three levels. It's make money, keep money, grow money. Those are three different skill
Hmm.
sets,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I try to help the younger generation, again, even people that intern at Vigor that become coaches that I teach, coaches that we mentor, we teach them this stuff, right? And every single time it's like, oh, but I'm not really making it. Like, you know what? No, 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 no. Do it now, right? Do it now. Put XYZ dollars per week, even if it's 25 bucks a week in S&P, Vanguard 500. Like learn the habit, automate these things, and it'll blow your mind what you can do. And the thing is that I tend to, want to talk to the younger generation about what they want. So there's, we talked about the fitness and the body, we talked about finances, career. Obviously, when you're in that space, most people think career, and this is what kind of stresses them out. And I'm a big, big, big believer in learning over earning. Um, I think today, one of the challenges that I see here in the States, I think from talking to, my brother, the guys that run the gym in Slovenia and just other places, it seems to be quite similar. Where if I get a, 22-year-old and are like, all right, I want to make the most money possible. And like, I don't really want to work that much. It's like, well, that mindset's not going to get you far, right? Like, I would much rather. So let's do a scenario. Let's say one job, you're going to get paid uh, 55 grand a year, right? And there's not a lot of like development learning, so on and so forth. Another job, you're going to get paid 40, 45. Tons of like, you're working for a person that's got incredible skill, position. They have a lot of learning, teaching opportunities. There's an upside because if you bust your ass for performance, right? And what I'm seeing a lot is that people are like, "Oh, I'll take, I'm going to take the extra dollar, not thinking like this place. no development, but I'm going to make more money right off the bat. This place,
Yeah,
incredible.
short term thinking for sure, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that, that's the learning over earning. That's the route that I went, and it pays off because it compounds, right? And so you have to think about skills. And I have this philosophy of like two things: hunt for role models, sorry, collect role models and hunt for skill sets, right? And collecting role models is like, well, if you look at I mean, I got like 2,000 books between my podcast room here and at home in this office because I'm always reading. And I started reading, collecting role models. Hey, this person I aspire to be like. What do they think like? What do they do? Right? I'm going to collect that role model and have that, like, try to build the identity of that person through behaviors, right? And then hunting for skill sets is like, today, depending on what industry you're in, it's probably valuable for you to learn some AI stuff. But like, hey, if you're a coach, you better be building your communication skill set,
Right,
right? You
right,
better
right.
be, it's like you got to, I just brought up a bunch of different resources. If you haven't studied them, man, go study them, right? Like
Hmm.
get around people, coaches, mentors, seminars. And now I think there's a huge benefit to the digital aspect of it, but I'll tell you what, the people that are not in person in this industry are missing out so much. It'll like, it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah, that's where you get the tightest feedback loop. I
that's where you
found
get the
this
best
as a
shit.
life
Hey,
coach, a business coach. It's where you get the tightest feedback. So you like I always do live stuff, even though I make very little money from it, because that's where I'm learning the most for when I do the online work or the Zoom work.
absolutely. And like, I mean, think about like the fitness coach, right? Like my first 10 years, I mean, I was at every seminar, cert, mentor. That's where all my money was being spent. It was getting around the best of the best. And imagine if I do a 3, 4 day thing with them and I'm spending 8 to 10 hours a day with them, seeing how they operate. By the way, I'm getting fast feedback loops, right? I do my thing. They go like, hey, Luca, here's what you did. Think about doing it this way. Boom, and I do it again. So I'm having really fast feedback loops. And I have I'm collecting a role model. Wow, this person does it this way. I do it this way. I need to step my game up, right? I need to bring more energy. I'm queuing too much or I'm queuing too little. Or you know what I mean? Like
You
I'm
get it.
seeing
You
a
get Luca,
lot
you
of
brought great energy to this, but we do need to wrap up, man. You've been super generous and just dropping all sorts of awesome information. Wish you could sort out the local gym to me in Slovenia. I'll tell you which one it is later. And give me a shout when you're in town. Where do people find you on the internet? Where do they go?
best bet is in Instagram. I kind of share a lot of the stuff. It's Luka Hocevar, Lukahocevar. I've got a pretty big YouTube channel that has about 2,000 videos now. Same thing, Luka Hocevar, and a podcast that is very, very coach oriented. It's called the Vigor Life Podcast. There's a pretty big podcast now in the fitness space everywhere. So those would probably be the top three. If you want to check out any educational stuff, especially if you're in fitness, lukahocevar.com. I have workshops and courses and stuff like that over there too. You can check it out.
Luca Havala.
And he's like, hey,